Hello, I'm Michael Pierce, and this is The Human Condition. Today, we're talking about the brain's insula and hot flashes and gut flora. It turns out that the insula is an area that a lot of people don't know that we can see on EEG with a little bit of enhancement and a little bit of manipulation of the data. It's not super easy to see, but you have to do a little bit of things to the data to see it. And people don't know where it is or what it is. So I thought I would show you. This is a model of a hemisphere. So you got half the brain and you've got the inside, right? So this, where I'm moving my finger here, is where the eyeball would be in the frontal lobe. So again, the eyeball would be right there and looking forward like that. So like this. There you go. And the little green thing is the cerebellum. And then we've got the temporal lobe and the frontal lobe. Now there's a fold right here. And that fold, if you were able to get your fingers in there and open it up, you'd see that it has three walls: a top, a back or side wall, kind of a blind alley. It ends. It doesn't continue. It ends. And then the bottom. So you've got these three walls, and that's the insula. And the insula is a pocket. That little pocket holds fluid. And in humans, the really exciting part about the insula is that it does more than what we thought it happened in animals. So the first textbooks written about the insula really looked at animal studies, and they didn't fully understand that the human brain is much more developed in the insula. Apparently, the insula's folds continued to develop more because of its folds. So we began to evolve something more than our original homunculus. Now, some of you know what a homunculus is. It's that map that shows across the brain from the middle center all the way down in the parietal lobe, right here. It shows this area that goes from here up and around and down like this, right across the middle. And it's the sensory strip, and there's a motor strip too. So there's a sensory and a motor homunculus. Now, homunculus means little man. This is important because you can map where your tongue area of your brain is, and where your hands and your arms and your spine and your legs and your feet and your toes and your genitalia and just everything in that map. But that's a map of your external body. If you want to map your internal body, you just keep going into the insula. You just keep going into that fold that I showed you. So most people don't know that there's a continuing map inside there of the body's internal map. So that would be your guts, that would be your mouth, your throat, your tongue. That would be deeper parts of the inside of your body, the inside of your abdomen feels like, and what your legs and arms feel like. So it's important to know that there's really four regions of this insula that can control the immune system and the endocrine system. They don't do it by themselves. They certainly work with other areas, but they contribute to controlling the immune system and the endocrine system. So what's pretty exciting is that one of my mentors, Jay Gunkelman, was talking about how you can find overactive insula in these four regions, which is the front and the back, on the left and on the right. So imagine it just like a grid. There's two front sections left and right, and two back sections left and right. And so people can have four areas that are roughly able to be picked up on an EEG, a brain map, which is what I'm always talking about. So I've got pictures here of what the insula looks like when you do a transverse section, which means when you cut through the brain this way and you lift it off and look at it. There's also a picture where you look at it this way, cut the brain this way, and you can see what the insula looks like. Another picture is I've got kind of a 3D picture that shows from different angles what the insula looks like. So you can see the actual shelf inside there, inside the brain. So this insula can create hot flashes. And the really cool thing is we can see that effect in the brain waves. We can see an active hot flash because somebody gets electrodermal responses in their scalp. They start to sweat. And so we see these big, slow rolling not rolling like eye movements, but slow rolling waves that are very, very slow. And those big sway of the signal is sweating of the scalp. And you see it in other people too. You can see it in people that are really angry or that have really high sympathetic response. You can see it in people that are just hot if they've not in an air-conditioned setting and their scalp is sweating, or if they're having a hot flash. So One of the things Jay pioneered was being able to do neurofeedback after you've looked at one of those maps and learn how to treat and calm down that insula and get that area to read it on the waves and be able to show the patient where the problem is and show them and train them how to normalize that brainwave at that location. And that's pretty exciting to be able to say, hey, we need to really turn this activity down. So when you train somebody with neurofeedback to turn that brainwave at that location down, their hot flashes stop, and their sweating stops, and their digestive problems stop, and their sleeplessness stops, and it's pretty exciting. So this can be used for a whole bunch of autonomic problems, and all we have to do is just prove that there's a problem in the insula of the brain. So let's talk about what these areas are. So you've got a front area, which is the anterior or front of the right and left insula. And so the front area tends to be gut. It's called interoception. It means you feel your guts, your gut feelings. So when people have a gut feeling about an event, or they're worried about something, and maybe they're soldiers, or they're have a bad premonition or something, and they feel in their gut something that might be happening in the future. Many of these feelings can be driven by the insula's overactivity. Sometimes people will feel nausea. Sometimes people will feel a sense of fullness if they're stimulated in their anterior or front insula. Now, the left side tends to be a little more sympathetic and the right tends to be more parasympathetic. So if one is more dominant over the other, you might get symptoms like, more vasoconstriction and constricted blood flow and fight or flight types of symptoms and anxiety. And with too much parasympathetic, you might get nausea and feeling like you're going to vomit, or feeling like you're going to have diarrhea, or a bowel movement is sneaking up on you, or like you have to urinate. You may also be too relaxed or too calm, or you may have changes in your respiration. If it's too much, you might begin to sweat. So that's the general idea, is that the interoception, the gut feelings, the feelings of feeling the world in your gut and your gut in the world, is this interoception. It also affects taste and it affects cravings. Now, we've talked about the chemistry of cravings. Sometimes cravings are easily able to be interpreted by someone who knows what they're doing, and they can ask what the craving is and then try to translate it into what the real need is. And often there's layers of the craving, because maybe that they crave processed food, maybe they have immune reactions, maybe they have inflammation, maybe they have deficiencies, maybe they have toxicities like heavy metals. And so sometimes you have to interpret through layers when you're clinically interpreting the symptoms of cravings. It also makes a huge difference in pregnancy. So this is something that may be useful for neurofeedback for people that are having really, really bad nausea and vomiting in pregnancy, being able to do this work on the insula. Now, the back part, the posterior part of the insula, is extremely interesting. The back part of the insula is the posterior insula, and the left and the right insula are really different, and they involve some really cool things that might be hopeful for a lot of patients. The left posterior insula tends to be really involved in evidence of pain. So there's evidence that it's involved in temperature sensations, hypersensitivity to temperature, hypersensitivity to pain, all over the body, not just the guts, but all over the body. Language interpretation, auditory interpretation, being overly sensitive to sound, and viscerally responding to sound, where you just feel like your teeth are on edge from listening to a sound that really, really bothers you. These are also related to, the left side is also related to cognitive aspects. So sometimes people have thoughts that they feel as pain, or pain that they feel as thoughts. And so that possibility can happen with folks. The left posterior insula is not triggered by visceral stimulation. So massaging, rubbing, putting hot packs on your abdomen doesn't trigger the left posterior insula. It triggers the left anterior insula, and sometimes the right anterior insula. So a person could have some real sensory processing problems of pain. They might have recurrent pain, they might have intractable pain, they might have chronic pain, they might have temperature sensitivities and what's called allodynia, which means sensitivity all over their body to air currents, which is just a hypersensitivity. It's really bad. And so these tactile and auditory and visual perceptions that really set people off could be triggered by their insula. So if a person has these problems, it may be worth getting a QEEG from someone and doing the in-depth analysis to take the raw waves and then analyze them and take them into an analysis of source localization and finding where the source is and seeing if you can see that it comes from the insula. And if you can identify that it comes from the insula, there are forms of neurofeedback, several forms of neurofeedback, that can really help that kind of problem. I'll end on the right posterior insula, which is the right side in the back of the insula. So that's emotional types of problems and emotional aspects of sensory experience. So if there's an emotional tie to a sensory experience, a person might have a real salience or a real importance to some emotional tie to a physical experience. So if you have a physical memory that's tied to an emotional pain or an emotional problem or an emotional experience, and those are wrapped up together, that can be part of PTSD. Whereas the left side posterior is a little bit more cognitive and related to thoughts and perceptions and sounds and lights and smells and temperature, whereas the right side is much more related to the emotion of the event. So if somebody has a very salient emotion that's attached to an experience, like the feeling of a particular garment or a feeling of a particular texture or a particular sense of their body, that the memory is encoded with the emotion, that may be part of a PTSD that's very hard to get rid of. So we would get rid of that by first find the problem in the right posterior insula, not necessarily looking for the gut problem, but looking for the emotional body problem. And then we would try to inhibit that area or train that down, train those brain waves down and try to calm them down so that the person can feel better. And I've seen this a bunch of times. I've seen it with a whole bunch of patients, and it's really exciting to be able to show that these effects are true. Oh, and I wanted to tell you about the gut flora studies. There's a study I will include here that explores the differences between how the gut and the gut flora, the bacteria that are inside your gut, can be reflected in the activity of the insula, the resting activity of the insula, which means that an EEG is a resting study. So when a person is at rest in a chair at the office of the clinician, and they put the cap on their head and they measure the brain waves, that those resting brain waves are reflective of how the gut flora may be acting. And therefore we can find it and we can fix it. Because there's a lot of people that are doing diet and throwing probiotics at patients, and most people get better when you change their diet and when you give them sunlight and when you give them neurofeedback, and when you do all the different interventions that we do in healthcare, chiropractic. But every once in a while, there's the tough patient, and that's kind of where I live. Everything that we do and that I work on is referrals of very difficult cases. So in specialty work in neurology, we have to figure out the toughest ones. So they end up filtered upward to us. And so I have to say that this has been a very powerful and wonderful method to be able to say, is it possible that your gut problem could be coming from your brain and could be treated through your brain with looking at the insula, anterior, posterior, left, and right? Thank you.